Welcome to the Find the Way podcast. In this show, we will try to explore what is happening in emerging markets and how entrepreneurs, investors, and communities are simply finding the way to make phenomenal things happen, regardless how volatile the environment may sometimes seem. I'm super excited to present to you today Jazmín Gustale Gill, all the way from Asunción, Paraguay. She's a venture capital investor based in LATAM. And currently, she is serving as the managing partner of iThink BC, and their fund is investing in exceptional entrepreneurs solving the most pressing challenges in LATAM. On top of that, Jazmin is very passionate about impact and the potential of disruptive technologies to transform the region and accelerate the sustainable development. Welcome, Jazmin.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure. I'm super happy, muy feliz, and that sharing this rainy morning from Asunción del Paraguay.
It's super exciting to have you here today, since you've been able to see what has been really happening in the past couple decades in the Paraguayan ecosystem. You first started from the government side, and you were doing a little bit of research and supervising multiple projects and developing the whole ecosystem of Paraguay. And now recently you have turned to be a venture capitalist. So I think that it would be super cool for the audience to hear a little bit of your story and your background.
It's a pleasure. As you mentioned, I have born and raised in Paraguay all of my life, but having the opportunity to live in different countries. At the beginning, when I was at high school, I did a semester in the US, in Denver, and then to New Zealand, and I live in Spain also, and then I went back to California. So being from Paraguay and having the opportunity of seeing all the world, I was always thinking, how can I bring all that development, the knowledge into my country, and also help in my country to connect to the rest of the world. And also I always have inside me that it is because a reason that I had born in my country, and of course have a lot of great things, but also have a lot of challenge that maybe I can put with a little bit of help, I can help in this challenge that the country has. So that for always has a mission on life in I can say for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you started your career in the government sector. So what did you do over there exactly?
Yeah, so I started my career at the Central Bank of Paraguay. I was a researcher, especially in macroeconomic, monetary policy, and that's how it started. But there was something inside me because I love to talk with people. I love to negotiate, articulate, travel around the world and talk with people about my country. So I had the opportunity to be the financial advisor of one of the ministers here. That was 10 years ago, of Minister Dionisio Borda, that he was a person very important in the macroeconomic stability in Paraguay. He started all the fiscal discipline with, of course, a lot of other people. So I had the opportunity to be in his cabinet and help to articulate with other ministries, with other public authorities, especially the public financial sector and all this public policy. That's how I started. And after that, I decided to go more to the practical side of public policy rather than the researcher. But of course, knowing where to go and taking into account my former knowledge of researcher, more policy.
Nice. And how do you would describe that has been the development of Paraguay since the change of the millennia? A lot of people in the audience might not really know that much about what is happening in Paraguay. What are the largest sectors that are operating within your country, and how is the future looking like?
Yeah. So Paraguay is the size of California. It's in the middle of South America, between Bolivia, Argentina, And also Brazil, it's a country of almost 8 million people, and the country has developed a lot in the last 20 years, especially. And we can say that in terms of GDP growth, it has been the Latin American country with the highest growth, or the one of the second, in the last 20 years. And this comes with a lot of good things that the country have done, especially in their time of GDP growth and development of key areas like, for example, cattle business, and also agro, and also in the third part of the economy is more related to energy. And we share the Itaipu Dam with Brazil, and we are the biggest per capita clean energy producer and exporter from all the world, because we export most of that energy to Brazil. So that's the country with a lot of macroeconomic stability. We didn't have in the history of Paraguay period of hyperinflation, and that's very weird here in the neighborhood. And so we have the same money, the same Guarani, that is our money. We have the same in the last 79 years. And the Guarani is the second oldest money in all Latin America. So in terms of growth, economic growth, and in terms of stability and also political stability, although we have a lot of change in the government after 5 years, and also in some, uh, how can I say, political changes in the last, I can say, 20 years, we always, especially in the last 20 years, we have an objective and keep doing it on that objective. So that's the country growing a lot with a lot of stability, with focus especially in agro, cattle business, and energy. And some small sectors start to develop, especially in the service sector, financial sectors, and also in what I'm doing now, that is the technology sector.
Thanks for sharing a little bit about the background. And now, then, if we take a look at the present, very recently in 21, you were the founding partners for a new pre-seed and seed stage venture capital fund that is operating in the region. Could you share a little bit about your current project and the mission behind it?
Yeah, totally. So let me tell you that 5 years ago, thanks to the government, I had the opportunity to do a master degree at Stanford University. So I was working in the government and doing all these great things with all the ministries, working together with all these people that also share the vision of developing the country. And I went to Stanford, and this totally changed my vision, totally changed my way of working for my country. Because over there, I discovered something that is very simple, but I didn't see that before going. That was that a country must develop uh, using technology, or using innovation, using the knowledge economy, rather than having as a baseline the exporting only commodities. And in order to change that, you really have to develop the ecosystem, and the government have to be one of the pillar of that ecosystem, and have to be the one who start this. And after that, the private sector will develop and will follow. So after coming from Stanford, I become vice minister of developing and planning. And from there, with the president and with other ministries, we developed two big projects for the country. One is called Digital Agenda with IDB, and the other is called ProInnova, in order to develop the digital economy in Paraguay, and especially also to develop all the technology in, for the country. So after that, and I started to work with the president, and we create any, that is, I always say, is the alpha, nowadays the beta of a national innovation agency. So from there, we develop three things. First, we promote a lot of startups competition that was not common in the country. So imagine in 3 years, around 35 startups competition, giving the capital seed. And also we work together with the angel network here in Paraguay. So we get together and the best startups get, of course, financing by this network. And also we develop two things. First, digital talent. We have a lot of projects now that are running all around the country because, of course, you can promote a lot of startups and all the ecosystem. But if you don't have the local talent that can get the supply for these startups, this is not going to work. And the third part was regulatory framework in order to make Paraguay more easier when you do business here and then when you work in technology and innovation. So that's what I have done in the last 3 years with the president in the president office, and also working with a lot of people from the private sector and also with a lot of ministries, all sharing the same vision. And after that, I decide with my co-founder, Juan Cruz Valdez. He comes from the private sector. He's an Argentinian living in Paraguay. He was the CEO of a big enterprise here for Paraguay, Bolivia, and also for Uruguay. And he also one of the founder um, of the Angel Network of Paraguay. And we share the vision of, hey, why don't we create a special VC for startups from Paraguay and also from other countries, emerging economies here in the region? Because after having worked 5 years more or less, trying to develop emerging ecosystems in Paraguay, but also in other countries, I saw two things. The first thing that I was seeing, and I also share this with Juan Cruz, my co-founders. First, a lot of enterprises, a lot of founders that won these great prizes. And at the end, after 6 months, we repeat the award. They were the first who present the same project. And I say, hey, but you should go to a VC now. You are already developed. Your product is in the market. But she or he was always saying, hey, but I don't know. I don't have other place to go. I don't know where to go. That was one of the things. And on the other side, a lot of people or with money and great people from the business sector here in Paraguay and also in Bolivia saying, hey, I also want to put my money there, but I don't know how to do it because this is a different animal from starting a normal or a traditional company. So taking into account these two opportunities, we create, iThink Venture Capital.
Nice. And then you're now currently focusing on Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay,
Sí.
and other countries, or those many?
So our fund, that is iThink Venture Capital, we focus on entrepreneurs coming from underrepresented countries in Latin America. We believe that talent is everywhere, but not opportunities. And even less VC opportunities, smart money opportunities from these great entrepreneurs. Our aim is to putting the first check in entrepreneurs in these 5 countries and not being the only one, but also putting the first check of trust, but also connecting them to the VC community around Latin America and around the world that has been growing a lot in the last decade. So just let me tell you, the VC ecosystem has grown 35 times in Latam in the last 10 years. All this money that come to VC, that come to startups, they went only to 4 countries. Less than 4 that are Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and we can say Colombia and Chile. Less than 5%, 4.2% went to the rest of Latin America. Hey, but in the rest of Latin America, there is a lot of talent and they are great entrepreneurs. Because when you give them the opportunities, they start to shine. But it is easy to say, but it's not easy to operate, especially because I prefer understand that a VC from Mexico, a VC from Brazil, or a VC from Argentina, they say, hey, we invest in all Latin America. But it's very difficult for a startup from Bolivia or Ecuador to have access to that VC. And when they this access, and especially like, for example, one founder with a lot of traction, he's great, and he is, for example, operating in Ecuador, and it's very difficult for the VC coming from a big economy to understand this entrepreneur. So what happened to us nowadays is we are the one who give all this deal flow from these 5 countries to all the rest of VCs, because they
Yeah.
want to understand the context. They want to understand how things work in each country in Latin America. It's always a, hey, Latin America, X amount of million people, but each country is a different continent.
Yeah. I think that is super fascinating that how still unrepresented these countries that you're targeting in terms of capital infrastructures are. Because now when I've been visiting and getting to know the entrepreneurs from the region, it is incredible how strong-minded, resilient these entrepreneurs are, which are basically also everywhere. But a very big differentiating factor that I witnessed when compared to Europe or the US is that a lot of these startups from very early on are already profitable. So they don't need to demonstrate path to profitability because out of necessity, they have become profitable because there is no funds, there is no means to get loans, grants, or even VC money. So these are very strong corporations that with the bit of a capital injection could do great scaling. So now, what are the big trends that you're seeing in terms of the region that you're serving? What type of technology are booming and what's happening?
Yeah, especially, let's talk about verticals. The 2 big verticals in Latam are e-commerce, fintech. And you can see that as a region, but then if you do a double click in the 5 countries that we focus are the same. So especially we are very good developing an e-commerce platform or SaaS platform, especially to small and medium enterprise. We see a lot of programs on that, and also fintech. Fintech, especially for financial inclusions, new neobancos or new banks, financial banks are getting and developing all around the country. That's one thing. And then there are two, we always say that there are 2 kind of projects. First, solving big issues, structural problems in Latin America, in the different countries through technology, financial inclusion or inclusion for the middle class and down, and education, the education, they have to develop a lot, especially in some countries in Latin America, health. So entrepreneurs that are using technology to solve these big problems.
Mhm.
And then we have some startups, some entrepreneurs that are developing the technology from Latin America, or the innovation from America to the rest of the world. Let me give you one example. We are one of the startup or portfolio is called ViewMind. It's they started in Argentina 10 years ago. What they do, they how do you say, diagnostic, or they do the projection of the probability of having neurodegenerative disease, like for example Alzheimer, 20 years before the symptoms appear. And that's something from Latin America to the rest of the world. They are now starting to commercialize in Europe and in hospital, especially in Luxembourg and also in Spain. And the second market will be the US. So that's one, it's not the majority, but that's one kind of startup that you can see. And the others that are solving these big issues, the big challenge that we still have in Latin America through technology.
Mhm. So then, if I just sum it up and make sure that I understand correctly, a big portion of the tech firms that are now being founded and operating within the region are solving real pains in terms of how to provide access to finance and to new set of consumers within the region. And that's a lot of products and services that we have used to utilize, let's say in Europe or in the US. So now it's just another wave of those type of solutions coming into Latin America. And then on top of that, you're now starting to bring global solutions right from the beginning to the world,
Totally.
right?
That
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. Because I'm talking about also the great opportunity that you have here. And the problem, the structural problem, I'm talking about mobility and logistics, health, finance. These problems have been there forever, and it's going to be there, still going to be there. And there are a lot of financial business opportunities solving these problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then if we look at for consumer and customer adoption, that the more I get to know the region, the more I realize that a lot of the things that I thought that I know how things are run and how operations should be run, they're very different in this region. And for instance, a lot of people are still so accustomed to use cash. It's very embedded into the culture. Now these new fintech solutions that are coming out, how do you see from your portfolio firms or from others that how are customers adapting to this new way of doing things in their lives? Is there
Yeah.
friction or are they willing to test and explore?
Yeah. So of course, the first or the early adopters are the millennials with the cell phone already. People from 18 to 25 years old, eh, tired of getting to the bank, tired of using cash, and also traveling around the world. And they try, hey, we don't have to use cash anymore. And I went to the US or I went to this country and they are not using cash. So I want that for my country also. I don't want it for my daily use. So that's the early adopter. And how is a startup that is starting a new bank that is called Coban from Coban is Banco, the opposite of Banco.
Yeah, the way around.
The way around, yeah. So they are starting from Bolivia to 5 countries. They are the same countries that we are covering in, I think. So, of course, the early adopters that they are starting are these millennials. And then there are a second early adopters that are maybe people that have work already, that maybe they are starting their families, that also want a different experience rather than the bank. And there you can start other, you can start focusing on other kind of people in the base of the pyramid. But at the same time, remember that in general, in Latin America, the covering of cell phone is very deep. I don't know the exact number because I don't want to say. I don't know the exact number for Paraguay. That is 98%. And in Latin America, it's lower than that. I think that was around 70 or 80%. But they have access to this. And they know that they are working already with the cell phone, being Uber driver or Move driver, because each Latin American country has their own Uber as well. And so they know they can use this to work. And if you give me, if you give me another app, and if you give me, I know that I can use this. And maybe at uh, the first thing that I will do is to try what you are offering me. But then in general, it's easy to start adopting, and especially if you work in the right, and you have the right incentive. For example, there is a one community, and of course, there is always one leader in the community. That is the press, or is the person that is in charge of the municipality, or the alcaldía, and how to work with these leaders in the different community that bring this trust. And after that, they will use the product. So it's totally different from growing your company in Europe or in the US. Totally different. You cannot use the same marketing trends or strategy. Each country has their own strategy, and it's very different because we work very close with people. We are very close with people. We are very close with leaders. So it's different working in Latin America.
Would you be able to give an example on that marketing theme that you just now mentioned, that we have relatively standardized playbooks with our go-to-markets for startups in Europe or in the US? There's of course unique twists for every industry vertical and every organization, but the ecosystem has developed so much already that a lot of the teams are utilizing relatively standardized playbooks with their go-to-market. Um, so how would you describe that? How to best promote and market your products if you would be within Paraguay and you want to get access to that roughly 8 million population?
Yeah. So two things. And first is to get a symbol for something that have to unify, I get together. The example of Paraguay, we speak two languages. So we speak Spanish and we always speak Guarani. So always you see the marketing advertising Guarani. So because that is something that belongs to me. And
Mm,
that is something, especially if I see a Paraguayan in the middle of Finland or in the middle of New Zealand, I talk Guarani and it's like maybe I never see him, I never saw him or her, but it's like a way of connecting. Or also
yeah,
putting the Albirroja, that is our soccer team. We are not in the World Cup, in this World Cup, but in the next one you will see us again.
of course, of course.
Having these put like symbols or things that get all the community together. That's
Yeah.
one of the, and the other was the trust. That's the trust.
Hmm.
In general, you have been here for months already, and you see that what we love to hug, we love to we are very interested in people life, and we are very welcoming. So, but especially if you want to sell something to me, if you want me to try something new, I will be very interested of what my neighbor is doing, other person that has been there forever, or what my cousin is doing, or
Yeah.
what my boss is doing. And so the best companies that can really reach out to we always say to the deep Paraguay or the deep Latin America are the ones who get this trust in each
Yeah.
community and can go through there. So especially, for example, we are working very close with a founder here in Paraguay that is like a SaaS that help give financial advice and it give the inventory of all the small and medium enterprises here, especially despensas, bodegas, very in the base of the pyramid. And the name is Shamigo, that in Guarani means my friend, my cuate. And I like because he's my friend. Okay, I like this app because he's my
Yeah.
he or she will help me. And then after that, they work with the early adopters, and these early adopters tell the other despensa or the other bodega, use this because thanks to this, now I have everything in one app. And I know that they never knew, but they at the beginning they thought they were doing like 2,000 and per month, and now they discover that they are doing 10,000 per month US.
Yeah.
Eh, So, so, so that's the other thing. Who is the person, or what are the things that they are trusting? And after that, getting that in order to go deep into the community.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think that that is something that people from Europe, the US, say more Western countries, have to also understand when coming and doing business in this region, because at least how I feel being living in Central and Northern Europe and in Northern America is that we're a lot more individualistic. And here, the sense of community means so much more than we can even understand. Um, so I think that that was a great point that you brought out there. And just summarizing a couple things over here is that you mentioned that because of the macroeconomical state of Paraguay has been relatively stable for multiple years right now, there is a big growing middle class and a huge need to use technology to solve these big problems that are out there that consumers are eager to start testing out and using. Um, how would you describe that when we look these three factors? that are relatively inevitably going to create a huge need for new products, new services, new teams, new technology companies. How are these companies able to serve these needs in terms of providing the right amount of talent to their teams and to their organizations so they can keep serving these increasing needs? So how is the talent pool of this region that where you're operating, and will it be able to handle this growth that is going to take place?
Yeah. We always recommend, especially for small markets. Remember that we invest from Paraguay to all Hispanic America with a focus in these 5 countries. So especially entrepreneurs coming from these more small economies, we can say, we always recommend to get together with other founders, not from their countries, but for other countries as well. And having this complement knowledge and experience, that is super important because imagine a Bolivian entrepreneur that is starting the new banco, or the new bank from Bolivia to the world. Okay. Maybe with a Bolivian team, they can solve the Bolivian issue or they can grow in Bolivia. But after that, 12 million is not necessary. They will need at least 60 million. How to go to Peru? How to disrupt the Paraguayan market? How to disrupt the Peruvian market after that? I mean, especially getting together with a mix of entrepreneurs, not from the same culture, from the
Hmm.
same country. That's the first thing. Especially the technology has to be someone that have experience of escalate other startup in Europe, in the US, or in Latin America. That's super important. So the global thinking, but acting locally.
Yeah.
That is okay. Knowing very well the problem that I need to solve in logistics, in agro, in finance, in health and education, but thinking globally and having
Yeah,
the team who is and can help me to do that on daily basis.
absolutely. And then if we look as just a final note, that how is the development of hard tech skills, if we start from coding within this region, this increasing demand is inevitably going to require a lot more talent to do the hard work operationally. And are there examples that how entrepreneurs and communities are trying to solve this increasing need for talent within this region?
Yeah, totally. So each country is different on that. So for example, Uruguay have a lot of experience, knowledge in the software development. It's incredible uh, how they are exporting talent, and you can see also in their ecosystem. Argentina is also well known, especially in the blockchain or crypto um, space, and you have great talent working from Argentina to the world. Bolivia have a lot of software development, especially in a city called Cochabamba. They call Cochabale, and it is great. All the companies that you see working from there to Europe and to the US as well. Paraguay have key example, still not as a valley or as a community, but there are a lot of great talent working from Paraguay to Google, to Tesla, to NVIDIA, great examples of working in. But at the same time, we are doing a lot of effort on that. We have a program called Programando Paraguay, so it's coding Paraguay, but at the same time, coding the country as a country,
Yeah.
have the two meanings, and to form 1,500 best talent in Paraguay and to work for for big companies, but at the same time to have the offer to work for the Paraguayan startups or to startups around the region. So it's a program that just started because let me tell you one number that is amazing, but around 60% of Paraguayans are below 40 years old.
Mm,
60%. But it's a percentage, a huge percent that and maybe they are not doing, they are not, no, of course, they are not working in the tech environment because they didn't have the opportunity, that they didn't get exposed to this. So the two best students that now they are starting, the first 30 who are starting first, is a driver, it's a truck driver that take the corn from one city to other city in here in Paraguay, and he's now doing the training. Is the best
Yeah.
school in Silicon Valley, and the other is a woman. The other is a woman that is working as a cashier in a supermarket, and in the afternoon she's doing all this. She's doing the course and she's learning how to code. So there is a lot of talent. Maybe they didn't have the opportunity when they were at school and when they started university to get exposed to technology. But nowadays, with this kind of program, we're trying to change that, because talent is everywhere, but not opportunities. And it's important to know these countries and to know the culture, to bring these opportunities to the right founders, to the right people. And that is why it's very important to have local VCs, local stakeholders in these countries around Latin America that can help this great talent to connect to the rest of the world.
Thanks, Jazmin. I think that was a great final note. And thanks a lot for sharing a bit of your story and opening up the doors to what is happening in your target region. So thanks a lot, Jazmin, for participating today.
It's a pleasure to have been with you, Eric, and waiting to see more investors, to see more people that want to come to Latin America, especially to Paraguay, that we always say is the best hidden secret in all Latin America.
Yeah, I agree. After visiting it, it truly feels like a hidden gem of the region. But yeah, thanks a lot, Jazmin. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Eric. Ciao, ciao.